Is the Canon RF 200 to 800 millimeter better than the Canon RF 800 f11 in every way? Is it worth the $1,900 price tag? Well then, stick around after this short message where I give you my first review comparing the Canon RF 200 to 800 millimeter against the Canon 800 millimeter f11 prime. But first, subscribe to this channel for a chance to win a Canon EOS R5. I'll be giving one away to one lucky subscriber once this channel reaches 100,000 subscribers. Anyone above the age of 18 with a valid mailing address is eligible. Additional terms and conditions are linked in the description down below. I was very lucky. Despite a forecast of cloud over the next foreseeable future, I had a few hours of sun. So I grabbed my camera gear and went deep into the Canadian hinterland with my family. I was fortunate to come across a couple of trumpet swans. I started shooting at 200 millimeters, but found myself effortlessly going to 500 millimeters and then to 800 millimeters and back again, whatever the scenario dictated. Please forgive the camera shake as I shot everything without a tripod or a monopod. You see, it was one of those family walks where we had the dog, so I needed to keep one hand free just in case anything went sideways. But fortunately, we came across this blind where I was able to use it to keep the camera relatively steady, which is why you don't see a whole lot of shake even when I'm shooting at 800 millimeters. But believe it or not, this shot here, this was shot handheld at 800 millimeters. The Canon RF 800 millimeter f11 is, after all, a prime. You're stuck at 800 millimeters unless, of course, you've got a 1.4 times extender taking you to 1120 or 1600 with a 2 times extender. And that's one of the real big benefits of the Canon RF 200 to 800 millimeter f6.3 to 9 is that you have the ability to go between 200 millimeters all the way up to 800 and back and forth without, well, any trouble. And because it has this tight and smooth ring, it allows you to adjust how quickly you can move between those focal lengths. And I gotta say that this has to be one of the biggest reasons to upgrade over the 800 millimeter f11. But what about some of the other capabilities of the 200 to 800 millimeter and how it compares over the 800 millimeter f11? Just like the RF 800 millimeter f11 is limited to 800, 1100, and 1600 with the teleconverters, it's also limited to f11. And the only way to vary out of that to f15 or f22 is once again with the 1.4 and 2 times extenders. The RF 200 to 800 millimeter f6.3 to 9 image stabilized USM has a range of f6.3 as a base all the way to f54. And this footage was shot between f18 and f32. And while arguably the optimal sharpness can be found on most lenses at around f8, when shooting video where every frame has some degree of motion blur, very good results can be had at around f29 or f32 when shooting in bright light. This footage of Niagara Falls was shot between f29 and f32. And to further reduce the sharpness, I was shooting at 4K at 120 frames per second. But I think we can be honest with each other here and look at this video and say, you know what, despite YouTube's compression algorithms, this looks pretty good and pretty impressive. But that's the main difference between videography and photography. So when shooting with a base, well, f-stop of f6.3, if you're shooting in bright light situations or even modest lighting situations, you're not going to have a problem. And when I was shooting today, even though I had sun, I had some of those feather clouds up top, so I wasn't getting a completely bright sky. And because it's December, almost the shortest day of the year, and I'm north of 44 degrees, we're not getting direct sun either. So the results are pretty good considering the lighting conditions. And I think f6.3 pretty well from once you get past dawn and dusk or in between dawn and dusk, you're going to get really good results. And I'm going to do another video where I cover off this lens, the 200 to 800 millimeter at dawn and dusk, because it's a completely separate challenge. And I think that's where lenses such as the 100 to 500 millimeter or the 100 to 300 millimeter are definitely going to produce better results. I can definitely say that the autofocus system on the RF 200 to 800 millimeter is definitely faster, a whole lot faster than the 800 millimeter f11. But still, that's a huge amount of focal range to cover. If you're up close at something at around 200 millimeters and you automatically go to 800 millimeters, it is going to take some time for it to change the focus point. And sometimes when I shot with the 800mm f11, I'd quickly switch it over to manual, and I'd quickly change the focus, and then I'd switch it to autofocus. And I still find myself doing that a little bit with a 200 to 800mm. Now, when you're shooting trumpet swans, if it takes a couple of seconds or 10 seconds to fully focus on it, not a big deal. But when you're shooting with other objects or other animals, such as birds that are constantly moving, then yeah, you might want to shoot with manual focus, or at least go back and forth between manual and automatic. That's if you're varying from a focal range of around 200 to 800. If you're sticking between, let's say, I don't know, 200 to 300 or 400 to 500, then yeah, you're not going to have any problems. It's definitely faster. And what I found with the 800mm f11 is sometimes it would seem to, I don't know, take its sweet time, go one way and then change direction and go the other way. And there were times where it would be sort of stuck in this kind of like, remember that old 70s video game Pong going back and forth? And that's what it felt like. So far, I haven't seen any of that with the 200 to 800mm f11, and I'm pretty happy with the speed of the autofocus system. The sharpness of the RF 200 to 800mm is much improved over the 800mm f11, and that's throughout the entire focal range. Again, lighting here isn't perfect, and while sunny for the most part, there is light cloud reducing the amount of light. But you can see the sharpness is pretty good, definitely better than what we saw with the turkeys shot in low light on the 800mm f11. And with the sun completely obscured by clouds, you can see the sharpness is pretty good compared to the 800mm f11. In the run-up to the announcement of the Canon RF 200 to 800mm, I suggested that it sounds like Canon took all the feedback from those who bought the 800mm f11, listened to all the reviews and the critics, and basically designed the 200 to 800mm as essentially the 800mm f11 Mark II. It has a variable aperture, a variable focal range, improved autofocus, improved sharpness, and it even got the white paint treatment. And while it's twice the price of the RF 800 f11, it offers a much better lens. I've only had it for 2 days, and I can already say that it's my new favorite lens. My new favorite lens for the Canon RF mount. The most fun that I've ever had with a lens since the Canon RF 800mm f11. The only place where the 800mm f11 is better is in weight. However, while the extra 1.5 pounds is definitely noticeable, it's something that once you start to see the results from this lens, you start to completely forgive it or even forget to notice it's there. And when I'm walking, I did 4.1 kilometers on this hike, and for most of the times I was holding it by the foot, and then I'd switch hands, and I didn't find that too heavy over 4.1 kilometers. And when it came to shooting, well, I was using a blind or some other object, a fence or a bench, to brace myself against, and it's pretty good. And with the advantages of shooting with a high shutter count for photography, well, then you're able to, or I shouldn't say a high shutter count, with a high shutter value or a shorter shutter value, then you're not going to have any blur or anything like that. You're going to get really good shots. And with video, the stabilization is pretty good. However, you really do want to brace yourself, and with some, if the shake isn't too bad, you can fix it in post. But yeah, there's an awful lot more to review on this lens, and what I'm doing is I'm taking a day-by-day approach because, like I said, I'm here north of 44 degrees, and I got to tell you, this time of year, you're lucky to get any sunlight. The complete forecast for the next week is showing nothing but cloud, rain, and snow, varying temperatures, and so when I saw some sunlight and the sky was opening up, I rushed out, went for a hike, took the lens with me, and I got what I could. And what I want to shoot next, I'm really hoping to get some great night shots. I want to shoot the moon, I want to shoot Jupiter and Saturn, but I also want to shoot some more wildlife. I want to get out there, I want to shoot in dawn and dusk, and I think, unfortunately, to do a full and proper review of this lens, I'm not going to be able to cap that off until March or April, but expect a couple of more videos between now and the end of the year. Hopefully I can do Saturn, Jupiter, the moon. I want to see how it performs, but I also want to see how it performs with a 2x extender. I did take this one video clip here with a 2x extender, and I wasn't all that impressed with it. First of all, the lighting, the color, it was shot in, it was cloudy, so it wasn't the best, but you can definitely see a fall off in sharpness, and that's what I expect to see when shooting with a 2x extender. And anybody who purchased this lens, if you're thinking of shooting with an extender, get the f1.4x extender. While the 2x is definitely going to give you more reach, it definitely gives you a whole lot more blur, and I think in most situations, the 2x extender just isn't worth it. If you need more reach, get the 1.4. You're going to be much happier with the results. You're going to see a little bit of a fall off in sharpness, but not a whole lot. And if you're looking at purchasing the Canon RF 200 to 800 millimeter, I keep wanting to call it the 100 to 500. Right now it's sold out everywhere, and I think it's going to be in tight supply for the next, I hate to say it, but probably until March or April. I really do love this lens already. It's a big, beefy lens. Let me lift it up here. It does take a bit of getting used to, and while you can, let me adjust the smoothness here, well, you can very quickly go from 200 to 800 and back with a single toss. It does take a bit of time. I really do love this. I think for $1,800, it's a terrific lens, and I'd like to say a special thanks to the engineers at Canon who spent a lot of hard-fought time and effort to engineer this lens, to develop it, and for the executives that actually gave it the go-ahead. I think that 200 to 800 is a winner, and if you're looking at purchasing it or any other camera gear, then please consider using my affiliates down below for Amazon, B&H, and Adorama. However, if you don't purchase from those sources normally and you purchase from your local camera store, what can I say? I mean, I really do believe in supporting your local camera store. I purchased that from Patrick at Downtown Camera, so if you're looking at buying camera gear in Canada, give Patrick a call. If he says he's going to call you back, he's got you on a list, and he will call you back. And he's not going to play any funny business where he says, yeah, you're number one, you're number two on the list, and then not get a call back. So really terrific guy to deal with. But if you do use my affiliate links for Amazon.com, B&H, and Adorama, I do get a commission back, which ranges anywhere from 2 to 12% depending on if you purchase something. But for those of you that have used my affiliate links, especially for the 200 to 800 millimeter, thank you so much, because I was able to purchase that lens, the first purchase of my new company. That's right, I'm now federally incorporated. I have my own corporation, and I use my corporate credit card to purchase that. And that's a terrific milestone for me. So I couldn't do it without you guys. So thank you so much. And if you do want to stay up to date on all the latest camera gear news and rumors, subscribe to this channel, but also follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter. And the reason being is whenever there's sales out or there's other information and news that isn't quite big enough to have its own separate video, such as $900 off the R5, the R5 II, $600 off the S1H, or $500 off up to $1,100 off depending on the kit package you get. We're also seeing sales on Nikon, et cetera, et cetera. I'm always tweeting this information out because, well, to do a video on that would be rather lame. Unless I did shorts. What do you guys think of shorts? If I did a short for every sale, yeah, no, that might get a little bit annoying. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. But that's it for now. Have yourself a great weekend, and we'll see you again soon.